The morning sun was warm and bright in Old Town Alexandria. Jiho Park walked down the quiet cobblestone street, his shoes making soft tapping sounds against the stones. He did this walk every morning before work, but today felt different. The cherry blossom trees lined both sides of the street. Their pink flowers were in full bloom, creating a beautiful canopy overhead. Jiho stopped walking and looked up at them. Something caught his eye. The flowers seemed to shine with a faint light that he had never seen before. Jiho rubbed his eyes and looked again. The gentle glow was still there. As a quantum physicist, he knew this wasn't normal. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small device he had made for measuring quantum energy levels. He always carried it with him because of his work at the research center. The device made a soft beeping sound as he pointed it at the trees. The readings were unlike anything he had seen before. The numbers showed energy patterns that shouldn't exist in normal plants. "This can't be right," Jiho said quietly to himself. He walked to another cherry blossom tree and tested it too. The same strange readings appeared on his screen. The street was still empty except for a few early morning joggers. None of them seemed to notice anything unusual about the trees. They ran past, focused on their exercise, while Jiho stood there studying the mysterious glow. He took out his phone and started taking pictures of the trees. The glow didn't show up in any of the photos. He then made a video recording of his device's readings as proof. As a scientist, he knew he needed evidence of what he was seeing. The morning breeze carried the sweet smell of the cherry blossoms. Jiho sat down on a nearby bench to think about what he had discovered. In his 5 years of studying quantum physics, he had never encountered anything like this. He opened his notebook and started writing down everything he observed. The glow was strongest around the flower petals. It seemed to pulse very slowly, like a heartbeat. His device showed that the energy patterns matched some theories about quantum communication. An old memory came back to him. His neighbor, Han-Sol Kim, had once told him stories about the cherry blossom trees in Old Town Alexandria. At the time, Jiho thought they were just nice stories for tourists. Now he wondered if there was more truth to them than he realized. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and more people started appearing on the street. Jiho checked his watch. It was almost time for work. He packed his device and notebook back into his bag, but his mind was racing with questions. As he walked toward the research center, Jiho looked back at the trees one last time. The gentle glow was still there, like a secret hiding in plain sight. He decided he would come back later with better equipment. There was something special about these trees, and he was determined to find out what it was. What Jiho didn't notice was a young woman sitting at a cafe across the street. She had been watching him the whole time. Naeun-Lee sipped her coffee and smiled. She had been waiting a long time for someone to notice the glow, and now she had found him. The cherry blossoms continued to shine softly in the morning light, their secret known to only a few. For most people walking down the historic streets of Old Town Alexandria, it was just another beautiful spring day. But for Jiho Park, it was the beginning of something much bigger than he could imagine. The next morning, Jiho went back to study the cherry blossom trees. He carried more scientific equipment in his backpack today. As he walked down King Street, he decided to stop at his favorite coffee shop first. The small cafe was quiet at this early hour. The smell of fresh coffee and warm bread filled the air. Jiho ordered his usual green tea and found a table near the window. From here, he could see the cherry blossom trees across the street. As he set up his notebook, someone approached his table. He looked up to see a young woman holding a cup of coffee. It was the same woman who had been watching him yesterday, though he didn't know this. "May I sit here?" she asked politely. "All the other tables are taken." Jiho looked around and noticed the cafe had filled up while he was lost in his thoughts. "Of course," he said, moving his backpack to make space. "I'm Jiho Park." "Thank you. I'm Naeun-Lee," she said with a smile. "I couldn't help but notice your scientific equipment. Are you a researcher?" Jiho nodded. "Yes, I work at the Quantum Physics Research Center nearby. He usually didn't talk much about his work, but something about Ne Young made him feel comfortable. How interesting, Ne Young said. I'm a graduate student studying human culture and traditions. I'm particularly interested in how different societies interpret natural phenomena. She looked out the window at the cherry blossom trees. Jai-ho followed her gaze. The strange glow was still visible around the flowers. He wondered if she could see it too. What do you think about the cherry blossoms? He asked carefully, watching her reaction. Ne-young took a sip of her coffee before answering. They're beautiful, aren't they? But sometimes I think there's more to them than what most people see. Her eyes met his with a knowing look. Jai-ho's heart beat faster. Yesterday, I noticed something unusual about them. Something that doesn't make sense according to normal physics. Tell me more, Ne-young said. She leaned forward, genuinely interested. Her questions were precise, as if she already knew what he might say but wanted to hear his observations. Jai-ho explained what he had seen and showed her the readings from his device. As they talked, he noticed that Ne-young's knowledge seemed to go far beyond what a regular graduate student should know. She asked questions about quantum frequencies that even his colleagues at work wouldn't think to ask. The morning passed quickly as they discussed theories and possibilities. Ne-young shared stories about similar phenomena in other parts of the world, though she was careful not to reveal too much. Would you like to help me with my research? Jai-ho asked. Your perspective is very different from what I usually hear at the research center. Ne-young smiled. I would like that very much. In fact, I was hoping you would ask. She wrote down her phone number on a napkin and handed it to him. As they prepared to leave the cafe, Ne-young paused. Jai-ho, have you told anyone else about what you've seen? He shook his head. Not yet. I wanted to gather more data first. That's wise, she said. Some discoveries need to be understood before they're shared. They walked out into the sunny street together. The cherry blossoms swayed gently in the breeze above them, their secret glow visible only to those who knew where to look. What Jai-ho didn't realize was that this chance meeting wasn't chance at all. Ne-young had been waiting for someone like him, someone who could see what others couldn't. As they parted ways, she sent a silent message to her people. She had found the right human at last. That evening, Jai-ho sat on his front porch, thinking about his meeting with Ne-young. The street was quiet except for the gentle sound of wind in the cherry blossom trees. He heard the familiar sound of a door opening next door. His elderly neighbor, Han-sol Kim, walked slowly to his own porch with a small tray. On it were 2 cups of traditional Korean tea. This was their evening routine, but tonight felt different. Would you like to join me for tea, Ji-ho? Han-sol called out. His voice was soft, but clear in the evening air. Ji-ho walked over and sat in his usual chair. Han-sol poured the tea carefully. Steam rose from the cups in the cool spring air. You seem troubled today, young friend. Did something unusual happen? Jai-ho took a sip of tea before speaking. Han-sol, do you remember the stories you used to tell me about the cherry blossom trees? The ones that seemed like fairy tales. The old man's eyes sparkled with interest. Ah, so you have finally seen it. The light in the blossoms. Jai-ho nearly dropped his teacup. You can see it too. Why didn't you tell me before? Han-sol smiled gently. Some truths must be discovered, not told. I have watched these trees for 50 years, waiting for someone else who could see their light. He stood up slowly and walked to a wooden chest in the corner of his porch. From it, he took out an old book bound in dark leather. The pages were yellow with age. This book was given to me by my teacher, Han-sol explained as he sat down again. It contains the knowledge of ancient Korean scholars who learned about these trees from visitors who came from very far away. Jai-ho listened carefully as Han-sol turned the pages. The book was filled with detailed drawings of cherry blossom trees and strange symbols he had never seen before. These trees are not ordinary trees, Han-sol continued. They were planted here with great purpose. They can sense things that exist between worlds. The light you see is their way of showing us what is usually hidden. But why here in Alexandria? Jaiho asked. And why can only some people see the light? Hansol took a long sip of his tea. This town was chosen carefully. The old buildings, the streets, they form a pattern. It is like a map that can be seen from very high above. The trees are part of this pattern. Jaiho thought about his meeting with Nayoung. I met someone today who seemed to know about this, a graduate student named Nayoung Lee. Hansol's expression became serious. Ah, they have sent a watcher at last. The time must be drawing near. A watcher? What do you mean? Jaiho asked. My young friend, you have stepped into something much bigger than cherry blossom trees and strange lights. These trees are waiting. They have been waiting for centuries for the right person to notice them. Hansol closed the old book carefully. Waiting for what? Jaiho's voice was barely a whisper now. For someone who can understand both worlds, the world of science that you study, and the world of things that science cannot yet explain. Hansol stood up slowly. Keep meeting with Nayoung. She will help you understand. But be careful. Knowledge like this must be protected. As Jaiho walked back to his own house later, the cherry blossoms glowed more brightly than ever. He looked up at them with new understanding. They were not just trees. They were messengers. And somehow, he had become part of their ancient message. The next day, Jaiho met Nayoung in front of the old Carlisle house. The morning sun made the historic building's stone walls glow warmly. Nayoung carried a large rolled-up paper under her arm. I want to show you something important, Nayoung said. They walked to a quiet corner of the garden where no one could see them. She spread the paper on a stone bench. It was an old map of Old Town Alexandria. Look at the pattern of the streets, she said, pointing to the grid of lines. Now look at this. She placed a transparent sheet over the map. On it were drawings of star patterns and strange symbols similar to those in Hansol's book. Jaiho looked carefully at the two papers. The streets matched the star patterns exactly, he said in surprise. This can't be a coincidence. No, it isn't, Nayoung agreed. The people who planned this town knew exactly what they were doing. Each major building stands at an important point in the pattern. They walked through the historic streets together. Nayoung showed him how the old buildings lined up perfectly with the morning sun. The cherry blossom trees were planted at special points where the streets crossed. The whole town is like a giant scientific instrument, Jaiho said, understanding more now. But what is it measuring? Nayoung stopped walking and looked up at the cherry blossoms. Not measuring. Signaling. She took out a small silver device from her bag. It looked more advanced than anything Jaiho had ever seen. The device made a soft humming sound as she pointed it at the trees. Numbers and symbols appeared on its screen, but they were in a language Jaiho didn't recognize. The founders of Alexandria worked with certain visitors, Nayoung explained carefully. They built the town this way to create a beacon. The cherry blossom trees act as natural amplifiers for the signal. Jaiho thought about what Hansol had told him. These visitors, they weren't from around here, were they? Nayoung smiled. No, they came from much further away. They helped design many historic places on Earth, but Alexandria is special. It's one of the few sites that still works perfectly. They walked down to the waterfront. The Potomac River flowed peacefully beside them. Nayoung showed Jaiho how the curve of the shoreline also matched the pattern on her map. The water helped strengthen the signal, she explained. Especially in spring when the cherry blossoms bloom. The whole system works together like a perfectly tuned instrument. But why can only some people see the light from the trees? Jaiho asked. That's what makes humans so interesting, Nayoung said. Some of you have natural abilities that even our science can't explain. You can sense things that our machines can only measure. As they talked, more people came out to enjoy the beautiful spring day. Tourists took pictures of the historic buildings. Children played in the parks. None of them noticed how the morning light hit each building at exactly the right angle, or how the cherry blossom trees pulsed with gentle energy. All of this has been hiding in plain sight, Jaiho said quietly. An entire network of ancient signals, disguised as a historic town. Nayoung nodded. The best hidden things are often the most visible. People see the beauty of Old Town Alexandria every day. They just don't know why it feels so special. As evening approached, Nayoung led Jaiho to a quiet garden behind the Athenaeum. The old building's red brick walls glowed orange in the setting sun. Cherry blossom petals floated gently in the air around them. Jaiho, Nayoung said softly, I need to tell you something important. She sat down on a stone bench and gestured for him to join her. You've already figured out that the cherry blossoms are special, she continued. And you understand that Alexandria's layout is not random. But there's more you need to know. Jaiho noticed that the strange glow around the cherry blossoms grew stronger as Nayoung spoke. Her silver device made a gentle humming sound in her bag. I'm not really a graduate student, Nayoung said, looking directly at him. I'm not even from Earth. I was sent here to find someone who could see what you can see. Jaiho sat quietly for a moment. The strange events of the past few days started to make more sense. You're one of the visitors Hansol mentioned, he said. It wasn't a question. Nayoung nodded. Yes, my people helped build the signal network that runs through Alexandria and other places on Earth. We've been watching and waiting for the right time, for the right person. To Jaiho's surprise, he wasn't scared or shocked. His scientific mind was already thinking about all the possibilities. Is that why you can see the light from the trees too? Actually, I can't see it the way you do, Nayoung explained. I need this device to detect the signals. She took out her silver instrument. The fact that some humans can see these quantum patterns naturally is amazing to us. But why reveal this to me now? Jaiho asked. Because you did something none of us expected, Nayoung said. You not only saw the signals, but you also understood their scientific meaning. Your quantum physics research led you to the right conclusions on your own. As they talked, the garden grew darker. The cherry blossoms' glow became more visible, creating a soft, peaceful light around them. Nayoung's device projected a small hologram showing complex patterns that matched the layout of Alexandria's streets. Our civilizations are not so different, Nayoung continued. We both seek knowledge. We both value peace and understanding. That's why we chose this peaceful approach, waiting for humanity to discover us gradually. Jaiho thought about all the science fiction stories he had read about aliens. This was nothing like those stories. There were no spaceships, no weapons, no invasions. Just cherry blossoms, old buildings, and the quiet exchange of knowledge. What happens next? He asked. That depends partly on you, Nayoung replied. We hope you'll help us establish a proper connection between our worlds. But we won't rush anything. Like the cherry blossoms, some things need time to bloom properly. As they walked back through the quiet streets of Old Town, Jaiho looked at everything differently. Each building, each tree, each cobblestone street held new meaning. He realized that Alexandria wasn't just preserving human history. It was preparing for humanity's future. The following week brought perfect spring weather to Old Town Alexandria. The cherry blossoms reached their peak bloom, filling the air with soft pink petals. Jaiho noticed that the quantum glow around the trees grew stronger each day. Nayoung explained that this was the moment they had been waiting for. The energy patterns align perfectly only once each spring, she told Jaiho as they walked through Market Square. When this happens, we can open a temporary bridge between our worlds. Hansol joined them that morning, carrying his ancient book. Despite his age, he moved with purpose and energy today. I have watched over these trees for 50 years, he said. Now I will finally see them serve their true purpose. The three of them went to the garden behind the Athenaeum. Nayoung took out her silver device and placed it on the ground. Jaiho set up his quantum measurement equipment nearby. The scientific instruments from both worlds worked together, creating a soft harmony of quiet beeps and gentle hums. The town's design is focusing the quantum energies, Na-young explained as she adjusted her device. Each building acts like a mirror, reflecting and strengthening the signal. Jai-ho watched his equipment's readings climb higher. The numbers matched exactly with Na-young's predictions. "The patterns are perfectly aligned," he said, just like the star map showed. The morning sun reached the perfect angle above the buildings. Suddenly, the cherry blossom trees began to glow more brightly than ever before. Their light created patterns in the air that matched the streets of Old Town. "Now we need your help, Jai-ho," Na-young said. "Your ability to see these patterns naturally is important. You can help guide the energies in a way our machines cannot." Jai-ho closed his eyes and focused on the quantum patterns he could see. They felt like soft waves of light flowing through the streets. Following Na-young's instructions, he imagined these waves coming together in the garden. Han-sol opened his book and began reading ancient words that matched the rhythm of the energy waves. The air in the garden began to shimmer like the surface of calm water. "It's working," Na-young said quietly. Her device projected a large hologram showing complex patterns of light and energy. The patterns matched exactly what Jai-ho could see with his own eyes. Slowly, a doorway of light formed between two cherry blossom trees. Through it, Jai-ho could see a peaceful garden that looked both familiar and alien. The plants there glowed with the same kind of light as the cherry blossoms. "This is a garden in my world," Na-young explained. "We chose to connect similar spaces first. It makes the transition easier and more natural." The gateway remained open for several minutes. During this time, Na-young sent messages to her people through the connection. The responses came back as patterns of light that her device translated. "They are pleased," she said, smiling. "The connection is stable and safe. We can begin regular communications now, though they will remain subtle and peaceful." As the sun moved higher, the gateway slowly faded away. The cherry blossoms returned to their normal glow. To anyone passing by, the garden looked completely ordinary again. "And so it begins," Han-sol said, closing his ancient book. "A new chapter in the story of both our worlds, starting right here in these peaceful streets." In the days following the gateway opening, Na-young shared important news with Jai-ho. They sat in their usual spot at the cafe, where their journey had begun. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, making the coffee cups glow warmly. "My people have made an amazing discovery," Na-young said, keeping her voice low. "The data we collected when you helped open the gateway showed something unexpected." Jai-ho sipped his green tea, waiting for her to continue. Outside, tourists walked past the window, taking pictures of the cherry blossoms. "We always knew some humans could see quantum patterns naturally," Na-young explained. "But we didn't understand why or how. Now we know it's connected to something unique about human consciousness." She took out her silver device and showed Jai-ho a series of readings. "When you helped guide the gateway's energy, you did something our most advanced machines cannot do. You understood the patterns instinctively." "But how is that possible?" Jai-ho asked. "Your civilization is far more advanced than ours." Na-young smiled. "Technology isn't everything. Humans have developed a special kind of awareness through your appreciation of beauty and natural harmony. You see connections that our logical, machine-based approach often misses." She explained that her people had always focused on building better devices and more powerful computers. But they had discovered that human minds could work with quantum energies in a completely different way. "Think about how you first noticed the cherry blossoms glow," she said. "You weren't using any equipment. You simply saw it because you were open to seeing it." Jai-ho remembered that first morning when he had noticed the strange light. It felt natural, like noticing the wind in the trees or the warmth of sunlight. "Exactly," Na-young said. "Humans have developed this ability through thousands of years of connecting with your world. You find meaning in patterns that our machines can only measure." She showed him more data on her device. "When we analyzed the gateway opening, We found that your presence made it much more stable. Your natural understanding of the quantum patterns helped guide the energy flows perfectly. So what does this mean for future contact between our worlds? Jaiho asked. It means we need to change our approach, Nayoung replied. Instead of trying to make contact through pure technology, we should work with human intuition and perception. Your people's gift for seeing beauty and pattern in the universe is exactly what we need. She explained that her civilization had already begun sharing this discovery with others across the galaxy. Many were surprised to learn that Earth, which seemed technologically simple to them, held such valuable knowledge. This is why we chose places like Old Town Alexandria, Nayoung continued. The peaceful streets, the historic buildings, the cherry blossoms, they all help humans develop their natural awareness. The town itself is like a teaching place. As they talked, more people filled the cafe. Students with laptops, business people hurrying to meetings, tourists planning their day. None of them knew that their very human way of seeing the world was teaching advanced civilizations a new way to understand the universe. Sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones we don't even know we have, Jaiho said thoughtfully, watching the cherry blossom petals fall outside the window. Spring gradually turned to summer in Old Town Alexandria. The cherry blossoms had shed their petals, but their quantum glow remained visible to those who knew where to look. Jaiho and Nayoung worked together to establish a permanent connection between their worlds. They chose the old Athenaeum building as the central point for their work. Its classical architecture and quiet atmosphere made it perfect for their needs. Hansol helped them set up a special room in the building's basement, where they installed both Earth and alien equipment. The connection should be subtle, Nayoung explained as they worked. We wanted to blend naturally with the town's daily life. She adjusted her silver device, which now stayed permanently in the room, hidden behind old bookshelves. Jaiho's Quantum Physics Research Center had noticed his improved understanding of energy patterns. They gave him permission to use the Athenaeum for what they thought was advanced theoretical research. This gave him the perfect cover for his real work. More visitors began appearing in Old Town Alexandria. They looked like ordinary tourists and students, but some were actually Nayoung's people. They chose to appear as Korean visitors because it helped them blend in naturally with the town's diverse population. Hansol's role changed too. He still watched over the cherry blossom trees, but now he also helped identify other humans who showed signs of quantum awareness. The gift is more common than we thought, he told Jaiho. People just need the right conditions to discover it. One quiet evening, Jaiho and Nayoung walked along King Street. The setting sun painted the old buildings in warm colors. Street musicians played soft music, and the air smelled like flowers and fresh bread from the cafes. Your world is teaching us so much, Nayoung said as they walked. We thought we would come here to guide humanity, but instead, we are learning from you. Jaiho smiled. And we're learning from you too. This is how it should be. Different civilizations helping each other grow. They had discovered that Earth's quantum connection was strongest in places where human culture and nature came together peacefully. Old Town Alexandria, with its careful blend of historic architecture, natural beauty, and quiet energy, was perfect for this. Other sites around the world began showing similar patterns. Nayoung's people found that wherever humans had built places of beauty and harmony, the quantum signals grew stronger. These locations formed a natural network across Earth. We don't need huge machines or dramatic events, Jaiho said, watching the tourists take photos of the sunset. The connection was here all along, in the quiet moments and peaceful places. That evening, they met Hansol for their regular tea time. His porch had become a meeting place where humans and visitors could talk quietly about their two worlds. The old man's knowledge helped bridge the gap between Earth's ancient wisdom and the advanced science of Nayoung's people. As summer settled over Alexandria, life continued much as it always had. Tourists still took photos of the historic buildings. Students still studied in the cafes. Couples still walked hand in hand along the cobblestone streets. But now, there was something more. Hidden beneath the surface of ordinary life, a deeper connection was growing. The quantum glow of the cherry blossom trees had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that sometimes the most important changes happen quietly, like the gradual turning of seasons.